what you see on the slide here is just a strategy that you can use for reflection. And if we were in person together, we'd be engaging in this strategy as we're reflecting on the talk it, try it, color it, check it. This particular strategy pairs with the competencies of social awareness and self-awareness. But I paired a quick write, so your thoughts that you just jotted down, with a strategy called stand, talk, sit. So you have students write independently at first, and then they form groups of 3 or 4, and they stand together. And they share with each other what they've written down. So I would share exactly what I wrote with my group. When I'm done sharing, I sit and I listen to my group mates. A teacher can easily see when their group is done because the entire group is sitting. And it also gives students the social awareness to know that when I'm sitting, I am listening. And when I'm standing is my turn to talk. At the end, you can also have students then basically get ideas from one another, give them time now to go ahead and add to their quick write based on what they've heard from their group. And so now they've gained ideas from their group mates as well. And the talk it, try it, color it, check it actually supports almost all of the social emotional learning competencies that we've talked about. They were collaborating together. And so their social awareness as well as the self-awareness when they independently worked. They had relationship skills when they were working together and talking about those SEL questions, such as how many pets do you have that you saw in the video there. And then they also had, the self-awareness piece again with the coloring the confidence, and then they checked their work.
So another idea for an engaging activity is something that I like to call think, ink, combine, and refine. So you can see that image down there is just kind of a template that you could use with students. But the think and ink portion of it is where you're going to have students independently think and process in response to a prompt or a problem that we give them. Again, I think that thinking time, that independent think time, that writing time is really critical to help students process what their own thoughts are before collaborating with others. So after that, you'll go into the combine and refine stage. So you'll have students pair up and share their responses. You want to help students both have some social awareness to learn from each other, as well as being able to validate other perspectives, being able to kind of share their perspective and hear from others and really give that respect to each other as they're listening. Then you'll have students combine their ideas into one refined answer. I think this is a really cool part to have them work on having one answer that is that they both agree upon, and that builds their relationship skills and helps them to, again, refine that answer into an even more accurate response.
The next engaging strategy is Jigsaw, which we know from John Hattie. Jigsaw has a high effect size. It's a really great go-to strategy that does take a little preparation. But basically the idea of Jigsaw is students end up in 2 different groups. And you could be working on a problem together. You could be reading an article or part of an article together. You could be just really working on a strategy or a certain type of problem together as well. So students start in a group, and you can start in your home group or start in your expert group, as you see in the image below. But the expert groups all work together on the same thing. So maybe I'm looking at different slopes from different representations. So expert group 1 is going to take a look at slope from a table. Expert group 2 is going to look at slope from a graph. Expert group 3, slope from 2 points, and expert group 4, slope in situations. Together, we're going to make sure that we have that process down and that we feel confident to explain it to others. We then go back to our home group, and you'll see in the home group, there's a representative from each of the expert groups. So we go around and share with each other how we solved and why we solved it the way we did, or what we know about finding slope from a table and finding slope from a graph. So that way, at the end of it, I've learned all 4 strategies, not just the one that I've engaged in myself, but the ones from my colleagues as my partners as well. It doesn't have to be 4 groups of 4 people. It's just however you can make it work in your classroom to have students go from one group to the next and have a representative from each group in that group. Now, I will say that the next level to Jigsaw, or to make sure, is that in the end, there's something that the home group needs to do together. So, what I like to ask is some connection questions, such as how did the slope from the different representations compare to each other? How are they similar? How are they different? What generalizations can you make about finding slope no matter the given representation? Something that forces all four students to put their ideas from their expert group together. And that way they really had to learn from each other and still discuss and talk with each other. So Jigsaw supports relationship skills, responsible decision making. It does support the other competencies as well, but really the piece here is to learn from each other and the relationship skills.
Another strategy that we really liked is numbered heads. This is a Kagan strategy, but we've kind of adapted it to make it kind of a game. And so I want to talk through what you'll see on the screen is an idea for virtual learning. And then I'm going to talk through also how to do it in person. So with numbered heads, you want to have students grouped either in groups of 3 or 4. And on a piece of paper, you're going to have students try the problem on their own. Again, back to that idea of allowing them that time to work on their own. And then you'll send students to breakout rooms. Again, if this is virtual, they'll have about 4 minutes to share their thinking and come up with a consensus. You could use something like Jamboard to have them share together and be able to show their work. And then when time ends, what we did was we had students be forced back. So at the end of 4 minutes, no matter where they were, we forced them back to the whole group, and then we announced both a number and a code word. So that number is something that you're going to do at the beginning. I meant to mention that you want to have students number off in their groups. So I said that you could either have groups of 3 or 4. So you would have them number off 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to announce a code word. So I just put there, what is your favorite barnyard animal? So you might say number 3, favorite barnyard animal. And all the number 3s are going to type in that code word as fast as they can into the chat. The first person that the teacher sees enter that word gets to share their response by unmuting and sharing their group's decision on the answer. If they're right, their team gets a point. And so this was a really fun way to bring strategy virtual and also make it kind of that safe competition. I've done it also in person where you just have them grouped again. They're going to number off. They're going to have their own time to work through the problem, come up with a consensus together. And then I actually kind of added some movement into it. So instead of announcing a code word, you're going to say, all the number 3s stand up. And so all the number 3s in the classroom will stand up. It gets a little friendly competition again that you have to watch for who stands up first. And the first person that you see, you call on them to share their response. So I think it's a really fun and engaging way to bring in relationship skills. It does work on student self-management skills. It can get to a fun level of competition, but they really have to manage their emotions through it. And then also the social awareness of being able to speak about your problem and really respect each other and how they're sharing the problem.
The next engaging strategy was inspired by Jennifer Gonzalez at Cult of Pedagogy. It's called chat stations. So basically, if you think of maybe you call it around the room or different stations where you would either take problems around the classroom or have students rotate to different problems in the room, this is a different take on that. So I'm still going to use similar type of problems, but the idea here is to have students in groups talking. And not just working on a problem together, but really discussing strategies for a problem, discussing about a problem and what they know or maybe don't know about a problem, and discussing how they would solve a problem together without just putting my head down and mathematically solving. So you'll see 2 examples here. This comes from a linear for Algebra 1 example of chat stations. The example on the left asks them, how do you tell the difference between domain and range? And so it asks students to discuss in their group and then record. And they can include images if they would like, a scenario. They can just discuss how they tell the difference on a graph and write that down. The example on the right asks them, what's the first step in writing an equation that you would see on the graph there. So they're going to discuss as a group what they do first, come to a consensus, and then record that on their paper. So Chat Stations really takes a different take on just solving and has students understanding different perspectives of each other, working on their relationship skills together, as well as self-managing. I'm not just solving the problem. I need to think about what the problem is asking me, and I need to work with my group to focus on that task.